Welcome back. We are going to look at what's next for every single London fighter from last week, starting with the main event, where Leon Edwards saw his fight skid move to 2. After losing the championship to Bilal Muhammad last year, he was pitted originally against Jack Della Maddalena, and that changed. When that changed, everyone thought it was going to be a tougher matchup, us included, and it turned out to be, didn't it, boys? So where do we see the direction now going for Leon? I know my shout for it straight away, but I'll hand it over to you first, Nathan.
Yeah, I think it's quite clear that as we spoke before about that these sort of matchups don't do Leon any favors, and I think for his future in terms of having someone that is from the UK and is a sort of standout name, a main event name that's not Paddy Pimblett. I mean, ideally from a matchmaking perspective, you're thinking business wise, and to be honest, just as a fan, you're looking at fights like the MVP fight. You're looking at those guys, the guys that are going to stand up with him, the guys that are going to be a bit maybe more well-rounded, but not so wrestling heavy and so strong, because Brady and Muhammad have proven that that's not really where you want to go with Leon in terms of just for his sake and also for just the fight fan, because the both fights have turned out pretty poor, and if you're a Leon fan, incredibly demoralizing. So I hope MVP is next. I mean, I saw Masvidal was talking earlier. For Leon, I wouldn't mind that because that's a big name, and that's someone I think he would beat. So that would be another fight UFC could consider if he was up for it. If Masvidal was up for it, that is, which sounds like he is. So yeah, but you've got to put him in with a specific style. It doesn't mean he'll win because MVP's proven to be very good, as and you never know with someone like Masvidal and that power that they possess. But you've got to match him with sort of fan-friendly fighters now, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there, Nathan. When you look at Leon's past opponents for the last however many fights it's been mainly the grappling type. You've had Sean Brady, Bilal, Colby, Usman. Even before that, even before then, he had Nick Diaz, which I'm pretty. Even though most of the fight was on the feet still, he's been preparing for the grappling heavy type. So I think it's about time you throw him in there with a striker. I'd throw out the Ian Gary shout, to be honest. I don't think Ian Gary's got an opponent right now that I'm not aware of anyway. And I think it'd make for a good fight. You could build some hype off it. You could go down the route of he come down to Renegade and they didn't take to him. So I think there could be a potential selling points storyline there. And I think it make for a fun fight too, because they both, well, I think it could go one or two ways. It would either go the really fun route and we'd get a brilliant kickboxing match, or we'd get two kg athletes and Ian Gary would fucking grab his leg and try to take him down. So I don't know, but I'd still like to see that play out, the fight play out regardless.
Absolutely, I agree with both points. I think Ian Gary's a really good shout, and likewise with MVP. And with the Gary fight, you're right, Alex. It can go one of two ways. I think Ian could dominate that fight if he wanted to. With Leon, I think he's a lot. He's a lot stronger. Yeah. He's the more fresher guy at welterweight as well. He's on the charge. His energy's always through the roof at the minute. He's mixing it up. He's like an adopted Brazilian now, which I like. That he's added that factor into his game, and he's gone elsewhere on a different side of the globe, and he's not just stayed over here and based in Ireland or in Europe, so to speak. MVP, I think that's a great fight with Leon, because it's guaranteed to be on the feet, and I think that's exactly what Leon needs. MVP said he'd take the fight. It could be high up on a decent enough card, a numbered card, or it could headline our co-main event next time. I don't know if Leon would now, because he's had to drop down to a fight night after losing his championship. If now he will have to drop down again, and it'd be a co-main event, but it'd still be high up there on a good card. So on the opposite side, the winner, Sean Brady, what next for him? It's got to be a charge towards championship gold, hasn't it? I know there's a lot of dimensions to play out within the division currently. However, Sean's definitely going to be asking for that next, isn't he, chaps?
Yeah, I think with Sean Brady, I think it's pretty. For me, the obvious choice is Shavkat, because obviously he was supposed to fight Bilal. He's had to pull out. Now I don't see the UFC booking that fight after the after the JDM fight. I don't see him booking that straight away. I don't think it would be. I don't think it would necessarily be fair, because I think that's twice now he's pulled out with injuries. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's twice now he's had to delay the fight back. So I don't think the UFC is going to book that straight away. So I think Sean Brady versus Shavkat for #1 contender is the most obvious one to me.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think that's how they should go. I think the only worry would be if the UFC, it turns into that sort of waiting game where they sort of queue up rather than fighting each other, because both guys know that the title shot is there for them, and they might just play it safe and not fight and say, look, well, I'm just going to get next. Failing the Shavkat fight, I mean, there's always Usman, but I don't know if that's a fight that Usman would really want at this point, considering Brady would be a real problem for him, I believe. And outside of that, there's not really a whole lot. I mean, I don't think Brady's going to look at a Joaquin Buckley or even a Covington and be particularly interested. I mean, I think Brady went after Covington today or said something about him. I'm not sure. But they're not fights really he'll want to take at that position. They're fights he'd win, I think. But, it's just a camp you don't need. So I think both guys are going to be. So, yeah, if they could do the Shavkat fight, then 100% you do that. If not, then they're just going to have to wait out and sort of queue up to fight the winner of Bilal versus JDM.
Yeah, I think if you're the UFC, if you're Hunter and Dana, that's the fight that you ask them both to do. However, I just think Shavkat might, and you know what Shavkat's like, he's a one a year fighter, isn't he? So I think he'd be happy to play out and not risk fighting Brady if he's been told that he's guaranteed this #1 contender space. I know they've kept the fair play to them, they've kept the division moving. There is a title fight in between this, but if I'm Shavkat, I'm thinking, do I really want to risk it fighting Sean Brady, or shall I just wait it out and go into the title fight? So that then does put Sean Brady back in the queue, doesn't it? But that welterweight division's interesting. It's changed. It's changing again, isn't it? And it's not exactly going to be an easy night's work for Bilal either. So who knows how it's going to play out over the next 12 months. But we'll move on to the co-main event of London. And the fight itself, a lot of split opinions on it from the MMA world, but Carlos Ulberg walks away the unanimous decision victor over Jan Blachowicz. What's next for Ulberg now? Do you throw him in with one of the closer guys to the top 5?
You sort of do. I think you have to do it because he won the fight. It wasn't the most impressive win. It wasn't something that is going to be remembered in history, but it also wasn't a sort of fight that you go, right, they must run it back, because it wasn't a particularly fun watch. So it does leave him in that slightly awkward position. You probably just do the Prochazka fight. I mean, it's a main event. It's simple. It's the most fan-friendly Ulberg fight you're going to get, I think, because obviously both are stand-up and Yuri is a crazy guy, but you do have that question mark about his chin nowadays, obviously after Pereira cracked it, that there's always that worry it might go out again, and Ulberg certainly has power. So that is probably the fight you make, because sort of every time, I mean, Prochazka could be right there for Ankalaev, so if you're him, it depends on what they're offering, but if I assume they're going to look to do Pereira Ankalaev again, which frees that up for Ulberg to fight Prochazka, and that would be a fun fight, and I think it would be a lot more interesting than and he's not ready for a title shot, so I don't think it's that fight now. It's Prochazka. If Ulberg comes through that, then no brainer, title shot straight after.
Yeah. I'm just going to double down on what you said there, Nathan. I completely agree. For those watching who caught our predictions video on Spotify, then you'll know that I said that the winner of this. Our review of the card, I said that Carlos Ulberg should fight Yuri Prochazka on that, and I think so too. As you said, he could chin Pereira, but Blachowicz could have chinned him too, and he was on the back foot. So is he going to try? The reason why I want to see it is because if he tries to go on the back foot with Yuri's got the pace and the energy to stay in front of him the whole time. So I'd like to see that fight, because he's going to make Carlos Ulberg come forward and stand with him toe to toe, or otherwise he's just going to get fucking overhand lefted over and over again. So they definitely agree on that one, Yuri Prochazka.
Yeah, based on the performance itself, You don't put him in with the winner of Ankalaev Pereira if that's going to be what's next. You absolutely don't put him in there. The Prohaska fight is what screams out on paper. I'm going to triple down on what you two have just said. And he needs a solid. He needs a bit of a war, doesn't he? Now he needs, he's not exactly had that fight where you think, fucking hell, he's had to go deep there to get that. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I want to see coming from Marcus Olberg. Now, moving on to Alex Theanara's win over Molly McCann. Just want to touch a little bit on Molly McCann, boys, and her career. Unfortunately, she didn't get the victory. There was niggles and tears leading up in fight camp. However, she was feeling confident, but an opponent on a week's notice doing that and that sort of performance, she knows it wasn't the standard of performance required in the UFC. She's obviously gutted with it, and time to close the curtain on a career. A very, very good one, boys. 7-7 in the UFC, first ever female Briton to get a victory in the Premier League. It's not bad going, is it? History maker. 4 times. She's ended up with 50 grand bonus.
Yeah.
It's set her up there, businesswoman now. Jesus.
Yeah, definitely. It has set her up for life, and she turned into a businesswoman nowadays. As you can see from her social media profile, she's got thriving businesses. Yeah, so all the best. She changed a life for herself and everybody around her. So she's a winner. She's a winner to us. She's a winner to us, no matter what.
Yeah, complete pioneer in women's MMA and MMA as a whole in the UK, and someone that people will remember, probably one of the first female fighters from the UK that I really knew of, and I'm sure that's the same story for a lot of people, and someone that everyone could get behind, and such a likable character, personality. So a lot to hold her hat on, and I'm sure someone like her, super valued in the gym. So someone that a lot of people can be turning to an advice, and awfully unlucky because she got a horrible upgrade in opponent in a week's notice, which sure didn't help her, because I think she'd have beat, I think it was Nunes she was meant to fight, Estela Nunes, something like that, and should have won that fight. But unfortunately she got matched with a killer, and that happens. But so much to hold her hat onto and so much to look back on, and I hope that people remember that rather than maybe the loss on the way out. That happens in MMA. We'll remember the good times instead.
Absolutely. And one of them good times, well, 2 of them good times, the spinning elbow finishes. Yeah. We're never going to forget them, are we, boys? We've gone down in MMA folklore.
Oh yeah. If you watched the episodes ago and you heard me tell a story about the pub with the fucking everyone's pints going everywhere after the Volkov and Aspinall card when Molly got the spinning elbow on, I forgot the lady's name, but
Carolina.
I'm not too sure, but it just gives the viewers a reason to go back and watch the other episodes.
Yeah, there would have been a lot of pints gone in the air at that moment, all over the country. Yeah, Molly McCann, what a legend, man. 7 wins in the UFC, and 4 of them she got a bonus. That's some doing that. That's more than half of the fights she's produced, like the best goods in the evening, and that really does take some doing. So yeah. Thank you for the memories, Molly McCann. Now, moving on to a very, very good domestic fight. Don't be silly. Get him in the gilly. Chris Duncan, great victory over Jordan Vucenic. I thought it was going the other way. But where do we see Chris Duncan going now, boys, in the opposite direction? What about Jordan Vucenic?
Yeah, it's tough for Jordan, because I think we'd have said if you call the episode on Spotify, that wasn't the Jordan Vucenic that we've come to love in the UK and through Cage Warriors. He wasn't at his best, but don't take anything away from Chris Duncan, because that was a superb performance from him, and certainly one you can't argue with. And for Chris Duncan now, it's about leveling up. It's about that next fight, that next test. And I mean, there's a host of names you could go for in lightweight. And as I'm sort of just looking now, there's a bunch of people you could stick him in with. I mean, I'm just checking if he's fought this guy before. He's not. Well, I'd put him in with Terence McKinney. That would be the next.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. They done a little bit of back and forth.
Yeah, they did.
That is guaranteed. That is guaranteed to be a banger with Chris Duncan. Oh, yeah. And to be honest, if you're Duncan, you might even be thinking he deserves a bit higher than that. But that's the fight I'd go with. And then you can start looking at guys that are a bit higher up in the rankings. You know, King Green has taken a couple losses recently. So if he comes through that fight, you know, there's guys like that. Drew Dober, who's just come off a loss. you are probably looking to those sort of veterans that have come off a couple of defeats. But for now, let's go Terence McKinney. But again, there's so many guys you could match him up with. He's a super fun fighter to watch. So there's a list of names you could stick him with.
Yeah,
absolutely. And your thoughts on that, Alex, quickly?
No, I agree with you, Nathan. The Terence McKinney fight. The only thing I can add to that is that they'd just be building off the conversation from the call outs a few weeks ago. As you just mentioned, they had a bit of a back and forth over social media, and it's a fight what they both want. It's a fight what people would watch as well. It's a fight what people would get behind. Chris Duncan's got a decent name for himself. A decent name for himself. He's a Scotsman. And he's living in America. So he's got so he's got a bit of American fan base, I guess, as well. And Terence McKinney's massive in Florida, I believe he's from. I believe he's from that area anyway. But yeah, Terence McKinney's got a massive following, and it's a fight what people can get behind as well. And it's a fight what's going to end in a finish. So I don't think either one of the fights I've ended in a decision recently. So I think that's a fight that would end very quickly.
Yeah.
Well.
And to be fair, I think because both of them fellas have been performing to a good standard of late, that deserves a decent slot on a good pay-per-view card in America. Let Chris have his fight where he's based, because he'd come out quite fresh as well. So, and McKinney fought. It wasn't too long ago, but it's within a good time frame now where you could make the fight pretty soon, is what I'm trying to get at, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like if they offered it now next week, could be signed within a couple of weeks, could be fighting in like 8 weeks' time or something like that, maybe. Moving on to another domestic one, and two old Cage Warriors foes, never fought in Cage Warriors, but they did finally in the UFC. Mr. Nathaniel Wood, great unanimous decision victory over Morgan Charrier. Now, what next for Nathaniel Wood? Because we've touched on this before, haven't we? About him might need that highlight reel finish in the higher weight class of featherweight. He just might need that big fight where it's notable and he's put the division on notice. Because the decision victories are good, and he is looking good. He is performing, and he's doing it to a very good standard. However, I just think people need to take notice, and I think one performance can change that for him, can't it?
Definitely. I said it last week. The Edson Barboza fight's the one for me. It's a good name. It's a test. Unfortunately, in terms of Wood and KO, I agree with you. I said it himself as well, but it's going to have to find it in one of these really tough fights, because he's winning too much to sort of set him up with someone that you feel like that he should get that or he could get that. So he's going to have to do it in the biggest. And to be fair, look, Lerone Murphy, who's fighting this week, he got the win against Edson Barboza. We didn't finish him, but he came away looking very impressive. So if you can go 5 rounds with him and survive, and not only survive but win looking good, then that's almost as good as a knockout, I think, in terms of getting yourself recognised in that division. So for me, that's the fight. Again, there's a lot of names, but Barboza stands out as a really good test for him.
Yeah, for the Edson Barboza, maybe like a Danny Ige, Calvin Kattar, top 14, top 15, but yeah, as you mentioned, Danny probably does need a bit of a finish to get that bit of a push and a bit more momentum. But I think he could finish Danny Ige. I think he's good enough too. Danny Ige's a bit chinny as well, so and Nathaniel Wood scores at least one knockdown in the majority of his fights. Yeah. So I think a Danny Ige matchup would fit him quite well.
Absolutely. And teammate Lonnie Cav, I was looking at the flyweight rankings. I think you could throw him in with. Well, I know he'd come into the promotion recently and he's fought for the title, but he's ranked number 15, Kai Asakura. I think Lonnie Cav won't look out of place with Kai Asakura, mate. I think he's of that level, mate. Definitely. Because if Lonnie Cav was fighting in Rising when Kai Asakura was, Lonnie Cav could easily be of that standard fighting in title fights in that promotion, So why not throw him in now? He's only ranked 15 with the UFC, or Joshua Van, who's number 14. Either of those two guys, you could put Lonnie Cav in with, and I think he'd do really well. We've mentioned him before, time and time again. He produces the goods, whether it's a knockout, or he has to go through the trenches a little bit as he did. But yeah, they're the two guys that I'd like to see him in with next.
Yeah. To be honest, I want to save Josh Van and Lonnie Kavanagh for down the line. I want more stakes behind it. That fight would be a fucking banger, mate. Like, push that fight a couple of years down the line, a number one contenders fight or something like that. Throw some stakes on it, and you've got a fucking 5-star fight right there. But yeah, I think a Kaya Asakura fight is very reasonable. It's the top 15. Lonnie Kavanagh's he's proved he belongs in the UFC. He's put on good performances, both fights. Both fights have been decisions, but they've been very good performances. As you said, he's on that level, so I think a Kaya Sakura fight is very reasonable. And I think Kaya Sakura would be the one who has to prove something in that fight.
Yeah, good point. I agree. What about you, Nave? Do you reckon Asakura has a bit of something to prove?
I think he does, and almost for that reason, I think they would swerve him away from Kavanagh. I think someone you bring in and straight away give him a title fight, you're going to want to give him someone else that's probably a bigger name, and that's nothing against Kavanagh. It just, if you bring someone in straight away at that level, look at what they've done with Urseg, and he's proven to be a pretty good fighter. He's just not been able to get the wins, and they've done similar to the likes of Roy Vow and people like that. So I imagine Asakura's next fight is a higher up fight. Maybe a Tyra. I don't know if they're teammates or anything, or maybe Manel Cape. You're looking at guys that are pushing towards title fights. So that fight maybe one they do down the line, especially if Asakura sort of struggles to get going in the UFC. But I think there's still lots of good fights out there. I was looking at someone like Charles Johnson, who always seems to be a really good test for guys that are trying to enter that ranking stage. And I think that's probably the next logical step for Kavanagh. You're probably looking at him wanting to get something a little bit more definitive on his record, in terms of just even like a shutout win or one that, without going through the war. As much as we love seeing him in the wars, I'd like to see him just, in a way, I'd like to see him just win a fight. As a fan of his, I'd like to see him just win a fight, and that you can maybe throw him in there with Cody Durden, or there's a guy, Andre Lima, he's 4-0, but 2 of those wins aren't one was when he got bitten, and a couple of them aren't the best. It's someone with a decent record though to look at. So I'd probably just slightly keep him away from the ranked guys for this next one. Wins that one, no brainer. You get him in there with someone. Again, you probably are looking at taking on someone that's on a bit of a loss or coming off a loss in those rankings. But yeah, with a prospect like Kavanagh, not to sound all sort of boxing, you do have to be kind of clever with the matchmaking for him, because the star is ready made there. So you've just got to be careful. You don't want to throw him into something too soon and you end up not getting the result you want. As good as he is, you never know what happens on fight night. Anything can happen. And even so, these guys that I'm saying are tough tests, but they're ones that you would expect him to come through.
No, I do agree with you there, Nathan. I think I'm just being a bit too far ahead. Obviously, I'd like to see him in with a nice matchup like Asakura or something, but you're like bubble wrap him a little bit, but let him off because he needs another highlight reel finish like the one he got in Contender Series on his way through, which was fucking spectacular. But yeah, okay, I see Nathan's point a little bit more, but anything next for Lonnie Cav, we are going to get behind massively. Mick Parkin received his first professional defeat, Marcin Tybura, the acid test, as we were saying in the preview. So where do they go next? Because as we know, there's only 30 registered heavyweights in the whole of the UFC roster. We're only waiting for one fight to be announced, but there's only 15 fights in total that we can make. So what next for these two? Tybura's on a 2-fight roll now, Mitch Parkin's got a lot to work on. Maybe he needs to find that killer instinct again, because he had him in positions where if he did actually go for the kill, he could have got him out of there, I thought. However, like I say, what next, boys?
Yeah, just want to start off Tybura versus Shamil Gaziev, the battle of the blobs, mate. You do it. Let me just have a quick double check if Gaziev
he's got a fight. He's got to back. I was just looking. He's got a fight.
Has he got a fight box?
Yeah.
Heavy. Oh, yeah. I was, mate. That would have been a great shout. For Mick Parkin, I'm not sure. Bloody side to Ivasa. Let him get a win back. Beat him up if Ty comes back. He's still ranked in the rankings. Ty, Tai Tuivasa's still ranked number 10. I don't know how.
That's a fair shout.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't. So yeah, it's still number 10. He could still break the top 10 in that fight. Yeah, you just give him someone to beat up because I don't think Ty's in the game anymore. I don't think he's heads with it. As I've been following his social media, he's been doing a lot of other stuff, so I'm not too sure I was really going with it. So just say you have Mick Parkin versus Tai Tuivasa. I think it'd be a good fight. If Tai comes in game, it would be a good barn burner fight, and Mick Parkin would have to throw some leather at him back and really turn it up a few gears. So yeah, I think it'd be a win-win situation either way.
Yeah, I think for Tybura, the loss cycle of his sort of UFC bit. So you give him the 2 wins against the prospects, and then you throw him up with someone higher. And to be fair, the way the guy's going, I'm not sure whether he would actually get through this fight, Pavlovich. But that would be the fight I'd go for, Sergey Pavlovich versus Tybura. That's a fresh matchup as well, I believe. And it's probably where, Pavlovich ain't near a title shot really. Tybura is probably not someone you're going to put there, but it's a good win for either guy if they get it, especially if Tybura wins it, then it probably puts him in a really good stead to get a big fight against maybe like a Curtis Blades or a Volkov, one of those guys. Maybe even an Aspinall rematch that you sort of just do to keep Aspinall busy if John Jones doesn't quite happen, which obviously would suck, but that you've always got to consider it. And then for Mick Parkin, it depends where you want to go. As you point out, Alex, I like the Tai Tuivasa fight. You can do the same with Derek Lewis. I don't think Parkin loses that one. But obviously with Lewis, there's a lot more to worry about in terms of that punch power. Or you go the other way and you stick him in there with a Cortez Acosta or in Chukwu, one of those guys who, again, I think Parkin's better than. I think he's definitely better than Walters Acosta. I think that, or Cortez Acosta, sorry. I don't think that's particularly close even. I've not been particularly impressed with him, even though he's gone on a good streak. So I reckon Mick Parkin could deal with that. But obviously they may look to give him. They seem to be doing a lot of the sort of like old gen versus new gen matchups in heavyweight, obviously, because there isn't many guys. So you've got to sort of do those sort of marketing type matchups where it's like this is the guy trying to win against the old vet. So yeah, Lewis or Tuivasa makes sense, or maybe Cortez Acosta if you're feeling fancy for a prospect fight. So yeah, that's where I'd go with Mick.
Absolutely, because despite losing the fight, it's not like he looked absolutely awful, Mick Parkin, is it? And he's certainly not going to be wanting to fight names behind him. I like the next gen, old gen type thing. So the Tuivasa fight screams of that, doesn't it? You could that's that type of fight, or the Derek Lewis fight. But I agree that brings a hell of a lot more dangers than it would the Tuivasa fight. So I don't think that's necessarily who you put Parkin in with next, because Derek Lewis has got a lot to prove, hasn't he? And for Tuivasa, it goes one or two ways. Like Alex said, he's seen stuff on his social media where he doesn't seem like his head's really in it. So it might just be like, a payday for him, because heavyweights, as we know, they don't have to do a weight cut. So the training doesn't necessarily have to be as full on, and the dieting doesn't have to be as full on. So what I'm saying is there's less care going into it from Tuivasa's side. But yeah, moving on. Chris Duncan, let's do a bit of quick fire for the last few. Chris Duncan, it was a bit of a dry fight. Got a unanimous decision victory over Puliev. What next for Chris Duncan? He's got a 4-2 now in the UFC, but it's just like he's another one, doesn't he? He just needs a little bit of a kickstart, a great performance, a standout performance, because he's in a division that is wide open again, isn't it, boys? If he had a charge. So who next? Would you give him a ranked opponent off the back of that? I'm not sure. What's your thoughts?
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't give him a ranked guy just yet. I'm sort of just scrolling through the names at middleweight, and it's a tough division because it's not a division that is necessarily full of fights that you look at and go, wow, they must make that, they must do that. So you can sort of go either way really with it. I would maybe look to one of the guys, maybe Shabazin. That could be a fight there with Edmund. A name that helps and draws a bit of attention to it, and a guy that is going to stand, and that might help Leroy Duncan because we know he is capable of the spectacular. So I don't necessarily have a name outside of that, but put him with someone that you could necessarily bring out that incredible viral moment, which he has proven he can do before.
What about Vettori?
Decent, yeah. Could be. Might be a bit too high up for him at the
But
minute.
it's just that Vettori's been sat in the rankings for years doing nothing, been injured.
Yeah.
He's come back. He's not looked fantastic. He's got a point to prove as well. I don't know if that's a ranked guy. It'd be someone like that. You know,
I could
that's
see
not,
it being.
You know, I don't know.
I could see it being like a Chris Curtis or someone. You know, it's one of those names. You know, I don't think there's been enough to warrant a rank fight, even against a guy like Vettori, who it would probably be an even matchup. But the worst thing you'd want for Leroy Duncan is to go in there and get outclassed by Vettori, because that would look just quite bad for him. And you probably want to just ease that up a little bit, and just you want to have some hype on a guy in middleweight, and you just got to try and find if he's going to be that guy. You know, you sort of need to take your time with him a little bit, and he's not far off of a Vettori fight at all. He's not far off it, but I think maybe one more fight before he gets near anyone in the top 10, especially. But yeah, it's interesting because Vettori does look a bit past it now, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the problem with middleweight is other than the people in the top 15, it is quite a shallow division in the UFC. There's not really a lot of recognizable names. A lot of the guys in the top 15, people aren't really going to know unless you're into the UFC. Like, so it's one of them. Who do you put him with? Do you make him and RoboCop fight it out again for who gets a ranking? But do you really want to see that again? But I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a sticky one. I just say screw it. Balls to the wall. Roman Kopylov, if he's not got a fight booked, top 15. If you can beat him, he's in the rankings. Boom. Then you do the Marvin Vettori fight. Yeah. I just think middleweight's just one of those divisions where there's just so many different options you could do.
Yeah, well, I'll just finish it with he keeps winning at the minute, doesn't he? And that's all, at least, they can really ask of him. So he's going to be asking for either a ranked or just outside the rankings. Now, the holy shit moment on the card, Shauna Bannon. Great moment. Do you think she can charge towards the rankings and a title? Because strawweights, and it's women's strawweights, it's not exactly, no offense, it's not exactly thriving at the best of times. But she's created a holy shit moment. Can she use that now to spur on? Because she was really active during her amateur days in the early part of her career. So do you think that now can spur her on, boys? And who next? I don't really pay that much attention to the women's strawweight rankings, but we'll have a quick look.
I would probably hold caution on the rankings yet for Bannon. I'm sorry, I feel like I keep playing sort of the conservative, like let's
bubble wrapping them all,
these guys. But I think I'd slow it with Bannon. I mean, it was a great moment, but in the fight, it didn't all go her own way against Toma, who, if we're being honest, probably isn't the highlight of women's strawweight. So you know, you do have to be careful. I don't necessarily have a name, but I would look just to go, just go with who's free and who's available that is outside of those rankings for now, and just see, give her a different look, give her a different test, give her a different style to Tomar. It's all about overcoming. Look, she's only had 8 fights, professional at least, obviously active and amateur as well, but she's still growing in the game. So it's a case of just keeping her active and getting her in with someone else and seeing what she can do. Because again, if she can come through it, she's got a hell of a story. And then, after a couple of those wins, you can, you're looking at someone that's 9-1 and you're thinking, oh wow, we've got a real contender. And then I think that's probably when you start throwing her those strawweight ranking opponents, because I mean, that's the division in the women's MMA that is the strongest for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything to touch on that quickly, Alex?
Yeah, I think I've got a decent opponent for in mind. We'll probably mention it in a bit, but on the Mexico card on the weekend just past, there was a lady who fought Lupe Godinez by the name of Julia Polastri. Excuse me if I've just butchered that, but she wasn't ranked either, and she was fighting Lupe, who was ranked. So maybe you could have her fight Shauna Bannon, and then they kind of fight it out between themselves to who gets a fight back in the rankings, who gets, basically make them battle it out for who gets to charge towards the rankings, because I can't really think of many other names outside that top 15. Either that, or you just say, you know what, here's a challenge, Angela Hill, boom, Apex, done.
Yeah, I like the shout. Loughran moved to 10-2 and kind of settled an old score with a split decision win over Nathan Fletcher. He needed that, didn't he? He needed the result, locker in. So what's next for him? Bantamweight's got a lot of names in it. It's a decent division, I think, in the UFC. So I don't know if you have looked at any names for what could be next for Lochran, or on the flip side for Nathan.
Yeah, on his post-fight interview, he mentioned a few names, and all the names he mentioned were good, reasonable matchups. He mentioned Raul Rosas Jr., Alexander Topuria, and I can't remember who the third one was for the life of me. But them two names alone would be a great matchup because I think they're both really reasonable too. Because Alex Topuria, he's only had the one fight in the UFC, so he's gonna need a few more outside the rankings, and he fought not too long ago as well, so the timings make sense.
Yeah, I'm with that. For me personally, that fight actually I was going to suggest for Fletcher because I know he wants it, as does Wassett, and I think with Topuria being, I think he's 6-1, and Fletcher's coming off a loss, that probably makes good sense, as well as the Lochran fights where you can do either or. The thing with bantamweight is honestly you could just put all the names on like a wheel and spin it, and then you've got a killer match up there. So it almost feels pointless to me to suggest any names. The names Alex suggested were fantastic, but I think you could literally put him against anyone and it would be a fun fight. And that's all you have to do if you're the matchmakers at UFC. Just stick a couple names in. All the unranked guys, put them in a hat, draw two out. There's your fight, and you're probably guaranteed a fun time. But yeah, no one in the rankings for either guy. But Topuria be one of them would definitely be a good matchup.
Absolutely, I don't disagree with any of that. Like we've just echoed the sentiments. It's a great division. You can put anyone with anyone, especially outside the rankings in that bantamweight division, and you're going to get a decent matchup. The only two that we didn't touch on, Chris Padilla beating Jai Herbert and Kai Fernandez beating Guram Kutaladze. If you've got any thoughts on what's next for any of them two boys, any of them four?
Padilla Vucenic. That's the conclusion I came to.
Oh yeah.
While I was there, the other one, Fernandez looked really good. And again, just put him in against just keep him active. I don't really have a name for Fernandez, but just keep him active because he really looked impressive against Kutaladze. Kutaladze maybe, I don't know whether he needs to be more active or take some time out. That performance wasn't great, so I don't really know where you go with Kutaladze. You definitely want to see him again, but not sure where or when you would with him.
Yeah. I was thinking you go a bit right. It's a bit of a mad shout. Jordan Vucenic versus I think his name's Ashnal Bull, the Indian guy who got knocked out pretty quickly a few months back. He's 0-2 in the UFC. Jordan Vucenic's 0-2 in the UFC. So you just make them two fight it out, and I think Jordan should fucking piss all over him in that fight. So yeah, I think it makes sense considering where they're both at, and it gives Jordan a good chance to fucking smoke someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, but just to correct you, Jordan's 1-2 in the UFC, not 0-2.
Oh right. Oh, fair enough. Fair play.
But yeah, we don't want to be taking a UFC victory away from him.
Fair play. Yeah, no, fair play too. Yeah.
But that's it for what's next for the UFC London fighters. Tune in again for next week's video. We're proudly sponsored by Hez Boxing Equipment. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, and all that good stuff.